Hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Ajuawak Kapashesit, an actor you may have seen in Indian Road Trip and Kid West, or in several short films. This week, you'll see him on the big screen in Stephen Campanelli's adaptation of Richard Wagame's Indian Horse, as the adult version of the title character, Saul Ironhorse. And Ajuawak picked a great movie, GoodFellas, Martin Scorsese's 1990 masterpiece about life on the fringes of the New York Mafia, with Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, a foot soldier who works his way up to what's basically mobster middle management. Joe Pesci is Tommy DeVito, a hair-trigger psychotic who's also kind of Henry's best pal. And Robert De Niro is Jimmy Conway, who's their mentor right up until he isn't. This is not to count out Lorraine Bracco or Paul Sorvino or any of the other amazing actors in the film. It's just hard to synopsize the film in any way. It's packed with incident and character, filled to bursting with tiny, perfectly observed moments. Adapted by Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi from Pileggi's book Wise Guy, it's one of the best movies of its genre, if not the best, and quite possibly the finest film Martin Scorsese has ever made. I know that's really saying something, but I'm saying it. This is Someone Else's Movie.
I think the thing about this movie that really kind of works for me is that obviously it has all this great talent in it, and Scorsese, like, he makes amazing things, and but the thing about this specific mafia film is that this was the first one that I saw where, like, the mafia characters, they were just they were a lot more human, like, yes, they have all this brutality in them, like all these things that they do, all these people they kill. But when they're not doing that, they have all these, like, really funny conversations. Like, when I was watching it as a kid, like, a lot of it was just a comedy to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is a comedy.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just straight up character
stuff,
right?
Yeah, I mean...
somebody stabs someone in the neck and...
Yeah, like, we can go into spoilers, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think at this point, what is it, almost 30 years old now?
Yeah, I was, what, 90?
90, yeah.
Yeah.
Lost to Dances with Wolves. I still don't fully understand how that happened.
I mean, there's things going on there.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, you were saying about spoiler territory.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's the whole sequence where, like, Spider makes the joke at Tommy's expense, and then Tommy shoots him.
Yeah.
And then, Henry walks over, and he's like, oh, he's dead. And he's like, lucky shot, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
It's just like, these just like great moments, these great one-liners. And so, he's hilarious. Joe Pesci, he's just so hilarious in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was the year after Lethal Weapon. And,
yeah.
We'd seen him in Raging Bull, but he was sort of a calmer presence. He was the one who was trying to talk LaMotta down.
Yeah.
And then he suddenly gets this reputation for comedy. And now back to this, where he just marries both of those disciplines, and he's terrifying, but he's also pretty funny. Yeah,
and like I think that like always adds the tension to the scene he's in, because at the drop of a hat he can just flip, and he'll be making all these jokes, and then all of a sudden it's not a joke anymore, and somebody might be dead. Yeah, and I just love that.
Yeah, or he reverses it, like the moment when the whole "Do you think I'm funny? I'm a clown."
The funny how thing,
and it's I remember I saw that in the theater. Like the weekend it opened, and you heard the air go out of it. Everybody just sucked in their breath and waited to see where it was going to go. Mm-hmm. And then people were knocking Ray Liotta for the way he laughs after that, but he's terrifying. It's not a natural laugh. Like, it's a guy pretending to be relieved and laughing when he's still, like, his heart's still beating in 1,000 beats a second, and he's going to fall over dead from terror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how old were you when you first saw it? What was your first experience?
God. I was definitely younger than I probably should have been.
Okay. That's the best way to see these things.
Yeah. I would guess maybe like 8 or 9, something like that. Okay. I had a couple of older siblings and cousins and stuff like that, so they loved it and they threw it on. And
so you were just there?
Yeah. It's just always been a part of our lives. Like, from as far back as I can remember, talking with like one of my sisters or my brother. One of my brothers, like, making jokes, like, straight out of the movie, like, pulling a reference, and, like, this and, like, Casino, like, just pulling stuff like that all the time.
So was it your introduction into Scorsese as well? Was it the first time you'd experienced?
Yeah, I think GoodFellas was, for sure.
You may have already said that. I'm not totally sure. Sorry, I was up really late last night. This screen. Yeah, I love the idea of seeing these movies too young. Like Bridie Elliott talked about seeing Rosemary's Baby when she was 8 or 9, and it's like she was definitely too young for it, but she was young enough that the worst stuff went past her. That it wasn't until later that she revisited it and saw. I mean, Goodfellas isn't as suggestive as Rosemary's Baby. It's pretty much upfront about everything.
Yeah.
The brutality, the violence, everything about it is so glorious, though. I mean, that's what I keep thinking. Scorsese's movies, they're like cocaine for kids because they come at you so hard that you either get rolled over by them and drown in them. That's a bad cocaine analogy, or you are, I want more. And my first experience of him at all, I think, was seeing. I probably saw Raging Bull first. Way too young. I would have been 11 or 12, and that was it. I was hooked after that. I saw everything else theatrically that I could, and then when Goodfellas came out, I was in my early 20s, and it was just. I still think it's his best movie. I mean, even more so than the obvious ones, Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. I think Goodfellas is the synthesis of his work. It's all of his discipline and all of the fun. Yeah. And then it turns on you and goes so bad so fast that that ride is so thrilling to experience.
Yeah, and I haven't seen all of his work, but I'm inclined to agree with you as well from what I've seen. There's something about it. You know, I've heard him talk about it, and a lot of it really kind of just draws from what he remembers growing up. You know, like the collars. He didn't like how the costumers were doing the collars, so he called his mother in and she did them because she was the only one who could do it right. And like the whole sequence with his mother was it like late in the night?
Yeah, Tommy's house.
Yeah,
Tommy's parents' house.
At Tommy's mother's house, like having the conversation about how it's all like improv based on their experience of. Like, they've known each other for years at this point. You know, Pesci had worked with him, and De Niro had worked with him a lot. So they all knew his mother. And Ray Liotta didn't really know her as well, I feel like, as what I read or heard. So, like, you know, he's kind of a bit more reserved, but they're, like, very much, like, in that. And then, like, that kind of plays into it, too, where she's like, hey, why are you so quiet, you know?
Yeah, it comes off as him trying to be respectful and also terrified. Yes, he's the one, and that is like the window of Henry Hill is such a terrific hook because he's not fully Italian. He can't pass, or he can pass briefly in any situation, but he's always eventually outed through his own awkwardness or grasping nature, or ultimately being a weasel because he is. But it's such a great way into the world because it justifies all the things that Scorsese loves to do, which is piling on exposition through, you know, like he shows and tells in this film, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He finds his way in with the monologues and the rabbiting and the character development and those gorgeous single takes, but he's also celebrating them at a remove because it's a world that our hero can't fully enter. Yeah. And that we don't want to fully enter. But he makes us want to so much.
There's a lot of that. There's a whole lot of seeing things about it that are like liberating in a certain way. You know, they're things that most people will never experience. And obviously there are plenty of parts of that that's good that they don't experience. But there are like certain things that it just seems so free. Like they do what they want to do. They want to go here, they go there. They want to sit at the front table, they just go to the front table and they take it. And for a lot of people that's like really liberating to just live that life. To like imagine living that life.
Yeah, well, the gangster power fantasy, I mean, God, it goes back to the 20s or 30s. It's always been part of cinema. I guess the thing that I've never understood is how the thug life thing from Scarface, from the Pacino Scarface, that took off in the 80s and was embraced. It became a part of hip hop culture, and it's this whole thing. It's like nobody ever finishes the movies. Like they never realize that no one wins in these films. Like everybody ends up dead or in prison, or in Henry's case, you know, he lives in a suburb like a schnook, which is still a line that I reference constantly in my head. Like, what is it? You ask for marinara sauce and you got egg noodles and ketchup. And that's the best case scenario. Yeah. No one is coming to kill you. Yeah. And the thing about the Scorsese films that that I love so much is that the crash is always part of it. Even in, Casino is all about that too. Wolf of Wall Street has that element of it. You are not supposed to celebrate these guys once the movie is over.
Sure.
But everybody's still riding the high.
Yeah.
It's so seductive.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that stood out to me when I was watching these, especially when it comes to mafia films, are that these people, they don't live what in a lot of cinema and for a lot of people is like a typical life.
Sure. Yeah.
And for a lot of people, like Native people don't usually live that like suburban life like that people a lot of times end up living. Like that how Henry Hill ends up living in the suburbs in like this cookie cutter lifestyle. That's not the reality for a lot of people. And a lot of people don't want that to be their reality. So when they see characters like this that reject that norm, that status quo, and try to do something different, that's like really interesting to them. That's compelling because that's something they can relate to in certain ways. Yeah. Because that's a world that has been closed off to them.
I hadn't even considered that, but even what we agree on as the American dream isn't that anymore for most people, right? Because the middle class in the States has disappeared. But if you come up to Canada and beyond, the cities and the most conformist aspects, it's a different kind of rejection. But does that mean embracing the means that it takes these characters to get there, right? Like that's what I mean about people not learning the lessons of the films. You embrace the characters' freedom, but you almost have to will yourself into not accepting the endings.
Well, yeah. I think
it's a different context.
Yeah, it's a different context, but there's also the fact that maybe you would know better than I. Like, are there a whole lot of movies that really kind of show that without being from the context of a criminal lifestyle or something like that, of rejecting that norm in a certain way?
Yeah, but there are weird things, weird being relative, but there's things like, Into the Wild where the character ends up dead, where abandoning society means you literally go away and then you make a mistake and the environment poisons you. Or the Terrence Malick films where people just wander around in stylized representations of freedom, but they're still white middle class people who've escaped. It's a different kind of punishment, I guess, socially speaking, in these films for leaving. Lost in America is the only one I can think of that played it out realistically with the Albert Brooks film, where he talks his wife into selling their house and buying a Winnebago and traveling in America. Like Free Spirits, they immediately lose all their money in a casino and they end up having to go back, and I think his last lines are, "I go get my job back and I eat shit. Sure, let's do that." And they just conform again immediately within, I think, weeks in terms of the film. And that's 1982, 1983. That's the last time anybody's really tried to do that.
One of the movies that's coming to mind for me now that maybe tries to do something like that is Up in the Air, the George Clooney film from a few years ago.
He's so committed to his corporate lifestyle that he doesn't have a home. Yeah,
he's like totally. He is a part of the machine.
Yes,
and he's made himself into that, and then by the end of the movie, he's like comes out of that, and like that's like the last sequence is him letting go of his suitcase for the first time. He just kind of lets go and like looks at all of the opportunities. If you can do anything, he can go anywhere. He has all the great opportunities to do so, and like that's the first time he's like truly free in the entire film.
Right. And it leaves him on a plane, doesn't it? Isn't the last moment of him is something he's in a seat flying forever? Yeah, it's like it's shot from behind and it's him looking at like the thing saying where all the departures are, and then the very next one is just the plane like in the clouds, and it's going anywhere, everywhere. Jason Reitman's art period. I mean, I do like that movie quite a bit. I really like that movie. Yeah, and it's about someone. I suppose the parallel or the connection is that it's someone who believes he's got the world figured out, knows exactly where to put his luggage, exactly which security line to go through, and all of that, and still has to confront the fact that he's empty inside. And in GoodFellas, nobody knows they're empty, right? They're all having a great time until the bill comes due. Sure. And the Lufthansa heist is presented as this delirious, thrilling, fun sequence, and it is like it's great to be part of that. Even like the planning of it and the dissemination of the money and everybody's celebratory and it's great. And then mistake, and that's how it all falls apart. But it's been waiting to fall apart for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was always coming.
Yeah.
That moral arc of the gangster movie.
Yeah.
But it still feels it's so much fun, and the details are so. And even when it's all falling apart, we have to think about pasta sauce.
Yeah,
we have to think about
mm-hmm.
the minutia of daily life. And Henry's not a bad person. He doesn't kill that many people compared to the people around him.
Yeah.
And you're constantly on repeat viewings, I'm constantly reminded that we're watching the confessions of a guy who got caught. So he's probably doing his part to push the blame off to other people, find more convenient psychos. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it keeps opening up new layers of interpretation, and that's what Scorsese does. Like his greatest strength is packing his films, I think, so full of observation, detail, character that you could watch an entire, or rather you could have an entire viewing where all you do is watch what Jimmy's doing, mm-hmm. and see how De Niro, who was just starting to get old, ages over. I mean, that it's great for him because Midnight Run's like 2 years earlier and he looks young in that.
Yeah, he does.
And here they age him over 30 years, but the aging is a lot less subtle on him than it is on everybody else. And
mm-hmm.
you sort of see who old Robert De Niro is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so present in that. It's
great. I mean, like, I just remember, like, was it Paul Sorvino in there?
Paulie.
Yeah, he's perfect, Yeah. It's great, like, the thing when he's cutting the garlic in prison with a razor blade.
Yeah.
And it's so and that's just like another moment of like putting all this like humanity into it and just kind of showing like, yes, like you've seen this before, you've seen the shootouts, you've seen the murders, but like this is them like in their element in between all of that, This is them just living their life when they're not doing that. You know? On was it Friday nights are for the wives, Saturday nights are for the girlfriends, and then Sunday nights I was like playing cards with the boys,
Yeah.
And like it's just so beautiful to show all of those moments. And then they have the whole sequence, towards the end when Henry's starting to like come undone. He's like, I got to get home and I got to make the meatballs, but I also got to like drop off these silencers, and then I got to go and see my guys from Philly coming in. It's and like that's something that everybody can relate to. Is like being overwhelmed with all this stuff. Like obviously to him it's the extreme and it has all these other things, but like those are just human things.
Yeah, and it shows us how many plates he's always been spinning. Too, right? Like the load is finally crushing him, but he's been doing all this stuff all along. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Goodfellas, the garlic thing, which everybody always cites it, and so do I, because it's this wonderful moment of observation where you actually feel like the movie is teaching you something that you can use. It's the only thing you can use.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm the only person who's like tried to do that after that.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine is a chef, and in his first recipe book, he wrote "Slice the garlic Goodfellas thin," and his wife said, "You have to explain that," and he said, "No, I don't think I do." And I think he's right. I think that's a reference you can get away with. It's permeated because it is somehow. I think now there's probably people who've never seen the movie who know what that means. Yeah. And it's just this marvelous character point. And Sorvino's warmth is something that I always forget. Then I see the movie again because I remember the shots of Paulie being suspicious and scowling. Yeah. Because he's got such a great forehead for that. Mm-hmm. But then you think about the scene where Henry does time as a kid, like the first time he gets busted, and Paulie is there. Like, you broke your cherry.
Yeah, he's so excited. He's like a proud father.
Yeah, it's such a great human moment that again you see how this lifestyle becomes seductive and how a kid would want to be part of this, especially an outsider kid like Henry. But yeah, you're not thinking about the morals, you're not thinking about the bad part. And that's the thing that Goodfellas gets that so few of the other movies seem to, is that why would you think about the bad stuff when you're having so much fun? Yeah. And it's like the trick that works on the audience, because that's where Scorsese's style comes in. You're like the first moment in, you're just grabbed by the back of the neck and yanked into this thing, and the music's pumping and it's great, and you never mind that there's a body in the trunk. We're just a bunch of guys having a good time in a car. There's a body in the trunk. Just keep coming back to that.
Oh man, yeah, I need to watch that again now. I was like trying to watch it. I was thinking of watching it to lead up to this, but I just didn't have enough time. But
Oh, that's fine. Sometimes it's better when people haven't seen it in a while because you get to engage with the bits you remember most vividly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is like I've seen it like so many times that like a lot of things just like naturally like come back to me.
Sure, yeah.
Like the whole sequence when De Niro starts getting like really suspicious again, and all of a sudden he's there and he's smoking, and then Cream comes on.
Yeah.
And he's just like that slow like
the shot in the diner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pushing. He's like you just know, you can just see it on his face, and when the music comes, it just it says everything. It's like this is where it all gets really bad for people.
Yeah,
and it's so beautiful.
And it's hanging on his subtlety as an actor, right? Like it's a big scene, but it wouldn't work if he was overselling it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to I don't know when it happened. Probably in the mid 2000s when De Niro stopped being a subtle actor. And he can do whatever he wants. He has the career behind him. It's fine. We all know, no one is taking away Godfather 2 or Goodfellas or Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. Those are never going away. And he gave a real performance in the film, in the English adaptation of Everybody's Fine, which is surprisingly good. Nobody saw it, but he's really good in it, playing just a father who's grown distant from his 3 kids, his adult kids. And you think about the self-parody stuff he did in the Meet the Parents movies, and they're so close in time to Goodfellas and Heat and his great textured stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think about today's De Niro trying a role of Jimmy in a movie like Goodfellas. I mean, he'd be too big. That's the quiet moments, the way that he never goes too high. He doesn't outshhout. He doesn't try to outshout Tommy or Henry. He's a moral figure. He brings in authority and shuts things down, but he's the worst of them. That idea of not indicating his depths of self-preservation. Like everything he does is very pragmatic. He's willing to kill anyone who jeopardizes him, as we see. Mm-hmm. But there's so much consideration in that performance.
Yeah.
It's watching it again. It really it shocked me how small he's willing to be.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. And then you have the scene with Bracco with come and look at the dresses. Coming this way. He's not overselling that either. But it's unnerving.
Yeah. You feel all kinds of ways about it, and I wonder about that. I think he's like enough of he's a master. He's proven himself a million times over. And I would be like, anytime I see that he's in a movie, I'm like more interested immediately. Because he's just somebody that knows how to do it better than most people will ever learn how to do it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly when he's got a director who's willing to direct him, he can be, riveting. I mean, you look at the breadth of his career, and the 5 or 6 great performances could be different people, just different actors.
Oh yeah.
I mean, again, Midnight Run and Goodfellas are 2 years apart, and they feel so completely removed. They're different, they're different genres, they're different tones. He's perfect in both of them, and he's still essentially himself. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't recognize Jimmy and Jack are 2 different characters, really. Mm-hmm. 2 different physical. He even carries himself differently.
Yeah.
In Goodfellas, he's working with a different center of gravity somehow. Mm-hmm. Like his weight's wrong.
Yeah.
But and then somehow Pesci wins the Oscar, which
I mean that is a well-deserved Oscar. Like he put in amazing work on that.
Oh yeah, no disrespect to anybody on the film, but he pulls focus, I guess, in a way, because the bigger Tommy is, the smaller Jimmy gets, and then you've got Liotta in the middle, just trying to figure out how to. He's physically trying to walk a tightrope between them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually great to watch Jimmy and Tommy in a scene together, because it's like this like weird yo-yo yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
Where like one of them's big, the other one's like smaller, and like they counterbalance each other so well, and it's beautiful to see every time. And I love when like he antagonizes a little, like he eggs him on, like and it just like adds so much more to it, because it's just like so, like it's a real friendship, and you can see it, and you can see them like really like having a good time, and making a joke at the other one's expense, and the other one like is mad about it, but like not that mad. Yeah. not mad enough to make it a thing, you know?
Right, yeah, it's the busting your balls thing
exactly.
versus a genuine insult. Yeah, and Jimmy, I think, it's, now that you mention it, there's that moment where he's telling him to calm down, but he's not really telling him to calm down. I was like, yeah, come on. And it's not going to go well if anyone else does that to him. But yeah, Tommy, like Jimmy either knows Tommy's not a threat to him or he has a gun on him at all times.
Yeah.
And could take him out if it came to that. But that's the unpredictability of Pesci's performance is so unsettling. The way that his eyes lock, the way that his shoulders move when he gets mad, that something is changing physically in him that he can't restrain. It's like he's going to Hulk out, this little guy who's still way more dangerous than anybody else in the room.
Yeah, you just see it building like in him, like exponentially by the second, and it's like this thing's gonna blow, and there's like nothing anybody can do about it. And it's just like, how do we minimize the damage in this moment?
Yeah,
and it
turns out you have to put him down.
Yeah, apparently that's how you deal with it in the end.
Yeah, and again, that is so marvelously handled as a show not tell moment. Just when Tommy reaches that little rec room and the way he deflates before he gets killed is just so. I remember again like the whole room going, oh, like they felt it. This was, I don't know, how many people did the Uptown One hold? 600, 700 people. It was just great to watch that with a crowd because it breathes, it ebbs, it flows, and then that happens, and everybody's sad for the man we just watched butcher 5 people.
Oh yeah,
of course it's movie.
And it's so interesting that like he is definitely not a great person. He definitely does a lot of terrible things, but he's so endearing in so many of his moments. Like even when he's like at his mom's house and he's like, by the way, Mom, I'm going to take this knife.
Yes.
And like, you know exactly what it's for at that point. He even like tells you what it's for. He's like, I got to go in. I got to like hack it off. Like this thing.
The paw. The way he says that, it's like a word he's just kind of remembered from a book.
Yeah. It's like he knows what it is, but he doesn't know.
The hoof, the paw.
Yeah, he's like, the paw. And then you just see like De Niro in the corner like, the hoof.
Yeah. Yeah, they're helping.
Like, and it's great, but like you know what the knife is for, and when he pulls it out, he's like, "Mom, I'm gonna borrow this. I'm gonna bring it back, but I'm gonna." Like you start laughing. You're just like, "Oh, that's so dark," and he's gonna use it. You know he's gonna bring it back, and you know exactly what it's for, and it's like a brutal thing.
Yeah.
But you're just like giddy, like watching this whole thing unwind.
It's inventive. It's a good solution.
Yeah.
Right? Like the best crime films are the ones that make us not only sympathize with the bad guys, but root for them and hope they get out, and then like maybe you get to question why you're rooting for them.
Yeah.
But you're right. In the moment, it's just like, oh yeah, that's very clever. I wish I had a friend who was that clever. Yeah. No, I don't. No, I don't. Wait, that's for killing.
Or like when Jimmy takes the truck, I think is one of the early scenes when you like first meet him, and like he takes the dude's wallet, he takes his ID, and like he kind of gives him this look, and he's like, "You may know who we are, but we know who you are.
Yeah.
You understand?" And then he just like puts a $20 bill in there and like takes off. And you're just like, that says so much. Like, like somebody says that to you, you know immediately what they mean.
Yeah.
You know immediately where that's going to go. You know? Yeah. It's not a very veiled threat.
No.
But he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the beauty of that too. This is not the first time he's done that. It's probably not the 50th time he's done that.
You know.
It's just rote. He doesn't have to do anything more. I think that's what I mean about De Niro tamping himself down. It's like he's gone through these motions before we ever met him, and it's all just muscle memory. And that's why, I guess, when he stops being a father figure to people, that's why it lands so hard, because we feel Henry's betrayal. Because this guy, he doesn't even walk fast. What's he going to do? He's not threatening. Oh, no, that's right. He used to be. And now he's doing it again because he finally has to.
Yeah. And the same with Paulie, when like, when Henry shows up and he needs some money, and it's like towards the end of the movie, and he's like telling the sob story that, you know, Paulie's been there and seen that and heard that from so many people before, and he's so like disappointed he has to hear this from this kid that showed so much promise that he like loved, and so like he gives him some money, and he's like kind of just gonna look like, now I got to turn my back on you.
Yeah. And
like that hits so hard, like when you hear that, and then Ray Liotta just sells it so well.
Yeah.
Just like it cuts deep. You're like, oh, that's That's a hard one. You know, like
through
that,
the cocaine, through the desperation.
Yeah, through all those, like...
You see a kid.
Like, that phrase when somebody says, like, you know, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, it's his version of that. It's like, now I got to turn my back on you.
Yeah. It sets up the state's evidence thing, like going to the feds, going to the witness protection, because he's mad at them.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped liking him first.
Yeah.
So anything he does is justified. It's like a kid lashing out with, you know, a pile of bodies behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, oh God, it's, yeah, and I just want to watch it again right now. Like the best movies are the ones that live in you forever, but also keep saying, come on back. Let's come on, spin us up again.
Yeah, well, that was just happening, maybe. We were just talking about that. The Shining. I just did this play in Minneapolis, and this theater we were in, it's called the Southern Theater, and it apparently is haunted.
Okay.
Right?
As all the best theaters are.
Yes. I had one minor haunting experience, but it wasn't bad. It was just, apparently there's a ghost that whistles, and I definitely heard some whistling going on in this corner.
It's not just a draft.
It was like a very human whistle.
A musical whistle? Yeah?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But then the backstage area, like the green room, the lighting in there and everything, it reminded me so much of The Shining. And I'm like, so there's this like old building that's like potentially haunted, has like this incredible lighting in it. So like I just like got The Shining stuck in my head, and just like every night I would get home and I'm gonna watch it tonight. I'm gonna watch it tonight. And I don't like scary movies at all. I'm not big on them.
Okay. Because
like I get scared pretty easily. But The Shining is one that like I can usually like do because it's just so good, right? Yeah. I have like a short list of horror films that I will watch. You know, The Shining, Alien, and Get Out are definitely on that list. Okay. What you call it? What's the other one? The John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh yeah, none of those is really pure slasher. They're all conceptual horror films.
Yeah.
And they're among my favorites too. They're all great.
Yeah. They all have like, there's just something about them that always worked for me. But like The Shining, I was trying to watch it the past couple of nights, but like it's like way late at night, like 2 a.m. And I'm just like, I don't think I can get through this whole thing right now.
Yeah.
But,
and why would you can't just start it.
No.
They might not make it out this time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, every time I go back to it, like, I discover new things. Like, a new line of dialogue that I totally forgot was there. That, like, totally clicks with something that happens later that I forgot happened also, you know?
It is... Yeah, it's funny, the way it gets into the... I mean, you know, Stephen King famously hated it because he thinks it doesn't represent his novel, but the way that Kubrick leverages you in... traps you almost immediately with these characters and shows you right off the bat that Jack Torrance is not a healthy person. I think it's more disturbing that way. The book is about alcoholism and ghosts in a more metaphorical sense, and this movie's like, nope, it's all happening.
Yeah. Like,
he's falling apart. Yeah,
when I try to like explain it to people that haven't seen it, like I say, you know, a lot of horror films, like, they have these jump scares and all that, and this one is like not really about that. Like, it tells you within the first like 5 minutes like what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's like
in a really calm way.
Yeah. It's I kind of describe it as like dread as opposed to like something else. You know,
sure,
like you know this thing is coming, and it's just like, it's how do we get to this terrible moment that's like going to appear. Like, they're having an interview, it's like, oh, by the way, like. People got murdered here really brutally in this way, and he's like, oh, well, you won't have to worry about that with me.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Right?
Yeah, I don't think that we're gonna have any trouble at all. Yeah. And like 100%, you're like, why did you say that? Like, why did you have to set that up all of a sudden?
But it's the same central delusion of everybody in Goodfellas, right? Because they don't think it's going to happen to them. They're going to be the ones who get away or retire or end happily. And then we see that, and it means burning everybody, losing everything, being unhappy, not having any cocaine, and just, you know, like, just generally, because Henry's the drug addiction arc comes so fast that, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I assume that's what it's like. You know, like, you have no idea how deep you're in, and then you're in.
Yeah.
But watching him win, in quotes, that's terrible. It's all about all the cool stuff he used to do. Now he's that guy.
Yeah.
And he can't tell anybody. And he's talking to us. In the end, the direct address in the courtroom is so jarring because he's been voiceover the whole time, and then to see him suddenly start talking to the camera, to realize, oh yeah, we're the only ones who he can tell, because he can't talk to he literally can't tell anybody else all these cool stories, all of this fun he used to have, and he's alone with his memories, and that's gotta suck. And somehow I remain sympathetic to this guy who's not a good person.
Oh yeah.
At all. In the end, he betrays literally everyone. He'd already been betraying his wife, and now he's betrayed his entire crime family, but they were criminals, so that's fine. It's just this. You still don't want it to end when it's over, when it goes to my way and the good old days and the adrenaline high spikes again. You spend 2.5 hours with your heart just pounding with delight at all this awful stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, the narration throughout is just like, it's so perfect. Like it starts in that first moment. He's like, for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah.
And then like rags to riches just comes right in.
Yeah.
And like immediately I was like, yes, I'm hooked on this.
Yeah.
This is great. And it just like subtly comes in and out throughout the entire thing, just talking about like all these little subtle things that like they don't even like go into too much detail about, like this guy named Jimmy 2 times because he always says everything twice.
Yeah.
And like he just like continues to like the frame is there, and he just continues to paint in some of the background stuff that's most of the time you would never know.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going, and then as you're saying, at the end when he comes out from behind the witness desk and he comes up right up to the camera and he's like, and now it's over. And like that hits.
Yeah.
That hits, you're just like, oh.
It was a fun ride.
Yeah, man. This was the journey.
Yeah.
This is where we were. Oh.
Yeah. It's there's that joy in revelation where it's just showing you new things about this business, that every cliche has a reason that it's a cliche, and we get to watch all of them be developed. We get to see the Copacabana. We get to see what passed for celebration, what people thought was the lifestyle they were chasing, what class was supposed to be. But these people are all utterly without class. They're like morally depraved, but also their taste is just bad. And we're allowed to see it before the characters do. Yeah. And then the idea that the people get killed over fur coats and then are left in the bloodied fur coat to guarantee that it can never be reused. Everything is sullied, everything is soiled, everything is ruined. The car, the bodies are found in the car with the dealer sticker still in the window. Yeah. It's all just, everything about it is degraded. Yeah. Like everything that they touch goes bad. Well, not everything they touch, but when it ends, everything is toxic. Everything is contaminated, and we're just left with the wreckage of it. Yeah, it's a ride. Yeah, it's still fun. That's it, right? Like you're still looking at all this cool discarded stuff, going, it's still pretty neat. Like looked like they were having fun. Oh man, like I remember like watching it, and they like start showing the discovery of the bodies. Yeah, like, the Layla sequence, which is so just like almost ruins that song because I love it, and now I hear that epilogue, the piano stuff, start up, and it's like you can't not think about bodies in on hooks. Yeah, it's just thanks, Marty. It's like slow build up to this Cadillac that you just have this whole fight about, and you're just like, oh man, like everything went wrong there, and then like you have the Samuel L. Jackson scene, and that one's a great one. Stax. Yeah, when Stax is killed, because that's like you don't necessarily see it all coming. Like it's kind of a weird scene at first. Yeah. It's just like kind of off-putting, much like the last moment with Tommy, right before he gets whacked. But like you have the scene with Stax, and he's like, "Come on, like we got to go and deal with this stuff." Then all of a sudden, like he's and what killed me about that scene is they have I think his name's Garbone, right? The guy that's going with him. And he's like, go make some coffee. Like he goes out to do that. So like you think this thing's going on, and then boom, like kills him quickly. And all of a sudden he comes in with the coffee. Like, wait, what happened? Yeah. Like, what's going on? And like there's just like those. It's this juxtaposition of like all this comedy with all this brutality, like in rapid succession. Yeah. That was just
it was so like amazing to watch it when I first did.
Yeah, and you're right. The extra beat of what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
From Carbone, the poor guy who just like all we know about him really is that he's not that quick and he's not Eugene Levy, but he kind of looks like him, so you want him to be funny. And there's this deadpan energy to him because he's never really in on what's going on. And so on the next viewing, it's just like, oh yeah, you wouldn't want him anywhere near this. He'll screw it up. Go make coffee. It makes perfect sense, but it's so human and weird to leave that button in at the end where he's like, well, now what?
Yeah.
I was looking forward to coffee.
Yeah. It's such a great moment.
Because anybody else would cut it for time, right? Like the movie's already 2.5 hours. What can we lose? And no, keep it. You have to keep it. It's like the story about, Coppola delivered a 3-hour cut of The Godfather and Robert Evans wanted it down to 2. Or Paramount did, somebody did. So Robert Evans had it cut down to 2 hours just to prove that it wouldn't work. And so the Paramount saw the 2-hour cut and was like, oh God, no. Go back to the family. They took out all the meals. They took out most of the family conversations. They took out anything that wasn't directly criminal. And it just kills it.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Because of course it would. It takes out the texture.
Yeah.
And Goodfellas, I think, maybe this is probably heresy, but I think it might be a better film than The Godfather. Simply because it understands that they're not a family. Like the whole point of the tragedy of the Corleone family is that they stay together. Like if they just cut Fredo out of the business, it'd be fine. Everybody would have been fine, and it all falls apart because of Fredo. And Goodfellas doesn't have the sentimentality, and I think it makes it a meaner film. It makes it a stronger film. It's just different because it's a different kind of period piece. It's the difference between 70s filmmaking and 90s filmmaking. It moves so much faster and it's like a shark. It's just merciless. But that, to me, feels more like a commentary on the subject than, it's not... Scorsese's not trying to make some grand statement about the tragedy of the immigrant experience or America corrupting.
Yeah, or this fall from grace or something.
He's just going A, B, C. This is how it all goes bad. And it's a simple morality tale about a guy with no morals. And, it's the one I come back to more often, certainly.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I love The Godfather. It's a great film. But I definitely feel like I've always had more of a soft spot for Goodfellas. I feel like that one just really, I don't want to say speaks to me more, but it's got something to it that really, really stands out that I can always bite into. If it's ever on TV, I'm just like, okay, well there goes the next 2-3 hours. This is where I'm going to be now.
Yeah. How often does that happen? When was the last time you got tracked with it?
The last time, I want to say it was last year. It was on TV. It's one of the random movie channels, and I'm just I got time. Yeah. I can make time for this. Because it's just one of those movies that you can just come back to and just enjoy again and again and again. You could know every line and still love watching it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know the feeling well. So is there anything of the film that you've borrowed or stolen or absorbed or referenced or used, incorporated into your own creative DNA somehow?
Not professionally. The whole sequence, the funny house sequence.
Yeah.
It does have a lot of that that under the surface aggression building. And with friends, I totally do that, especially if they're new friends. I'll take offense to something that they say that totally means nothing. It's it's a friendly thing to say, and I build with it, and I go and I never I don't borrow any of the lines because that'll give it away because everybody knows, right? But 100%, I love to mess with people like that. I love to just get them a little off their out of their comfort zone with how they think I'm gonna take something that they say, and I just push it a little further, and give them a look what is that about? Why are you doing that? So inappropriate.
I've always thought that would work well in contract negotiations.
Ooh.
The whole successful steps of psychopaths, the things that you can incorporate without actually being a terrible person. But this is a thing you can use. This is a part of aberrant psychology that you can employ. But I don't have the confidence in myself. I think I would crack. I would break before it ever got anywhere.
That's usually what happens to me. I start doing it, then I burst out laughing.
I think that's good. I think that's how people are supposed to do it.
That's the healthy response.
My thanks to Ajuawak Kapashesit, who you can see as the older Saul in Indian Horse, opening in theaters across Canada this Friday, April 13th. Thanks also to Carrie Wolf. She knows what she did. Ajuawak is on Twitter at Ajuawak, Ajuawak, but he barely uses the platform, so you should follow the Indian Horse account at Indian Horse Film, all one word. And you can find GoodFellas in an excellent 25th anniversary special edition on 4K, Blu-ray, and DVD from Warner Home Entertainment. It's also available on iTunes and Google Play. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review up on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods, that would be greatly appreciated. Every little bit helps, it truly does. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening. Am I funny to you?